everybody. Laura, am I on?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Good morning and welcome to Time Rehab with Brenda Abdilla. I'm really excited to be here. Technology is fabulous, and for this reason, we have everybody muted. This is our first time on this platform, which is webinars on air. We'd love your feedback on it. We chose it among many choices these days. Now, we, of course, had a few little issues this morning because that's how life works. So I think, okay, good. Now, you should see a PowerPoint presentation there. And if you don't have a screen today, don't worry about it because the whole presentation will go on YouTube and you can see the screen there. And you should be able to kind of understand what we're talking about today without seeing, although the whole point of webinars on air is so that you can share my screen with me. So this will take us about 20 to 25 minutes to go through. The whole point, I think, you can't really do time rehab and take 4 hours and 25 minutes because what would be the point? That's not very considerate. So since this is just me basically talking to you without you being able to talk to me, I'm going to take you through a model that I created essentially for my clients. And like I said, we should be done in under 30 minutes, including some time for questions. Okay, now is the test to see. Oh, look, I was able to move my screen ahead. So what I think that we all want is a life of our choosing. There's basically too much of everything, too much of even the good things, too much overwhelm. And what I'm trying to help us do here is to create a life where we feel like we have more choice, because there is always going to be way too much. And so essentially, I created a model for our thinking instead of a bunch of strategies, which I do. I love strategies. I research strategies all the time. There are a lot of experts out there, much more profound experts than myself on the whole concept of time. But I didn't think we needed any more strategies. I thought we needed a model to be able to shift our thinking. And if you think about the changes that you've made in your life, big changes that you've made in your life, big epiphanies that you've had that created a shift for you, they were preceded by some kind of mindset shift. It's not really about 10 more strategies. It's really about reframing your thinking around time, since the technology and information overwhelm and all of us doing 4 jobs, the job of 4 people is not going to change. It's only going to get worse. So here is the basic model that I created. And don't worry that you can't see it super clearly. It's kind of like that on purpose because we're going to go through it. But it's essentially an upside down triangle for those of you that don't have the gift of sight this morning. It's an upside down triangle with some elements that you have to kind of get yourself through, some foundational elements. Those are physical environment, electronic, and ambient, which we'll talk about first. And then some values as it relates to time. And then ultimately white space, focus, which I'll define for you today. And ultimately a life where you feel that you have more choice and you feel that you have more joy in all of the work that you're doing. So first, let's start with the foundational elements, the non-sexy ones, but hopefully I can shed a little bit of light on physical environment, electronic, and then what I call ambient. So first, physical environment. So most of us, a lot of people think that, and I think this picture is hilarious if you can see it with the messy desk. I like the glass of wine and the juggling implements on this person's desk. But the truth is that messy desks at work tend to be just sort of piled to the top. And when you think about your physical environment, I want you to think about your home, your desk, and many of us have double offices. Think about your garage, your basement, for God's sakes. I mean, that's a stressful one for most people. So the thing is that your physical environment matters more than you think. And for most of us, it's going to take a significant amount of time to dig out if you don't have an organized physical environment. So one of the easiest ways to know if you're impacted by your physical environment, and I mean impacted by from a productivity and psychological point of view, is to just clean your office. And if you feel better and if you feel lighter as a result of it, then you're like most of us and you're impacted by your physical environment. So with physical and electronic, which we'll talk about next, one of the litmus tests is if you're constantly looking for things and you can't find things, and you have piles with super important things buried in them that you know you're not attending to, that creates stress. It's not really a moral issue. It's not that cleanliness is next to godliness. It's that it creates stress, and it does not allow you the full functioning, productive brain that you were born with. So one more thing on physical environment. Most of us need some help. So I did a talk last year for the National Association of Professional Organizers, NAPO, and they were predominantly women, and these people are obsessed with helping us get organized. They have every imaginable kind of organizer, and some of you, including myself, are just going to need a fresh start. And in order to do that, we probably need a team of people to help us. So I did it myself 10 years ago, and it was the best money I ever spent. It was awful to go through it. I wanted to do sort of anything but that. I tried to get away from the organizer several times that day. Her name was Ann McGurty. Her name actually is still Ann McGurty. Anyway, I highly recommend, if you are buried in your office or garage or basement, or your home is just cluttered, I suggest that you spend some money and some time, take a couple days off and get it done. Just gonna take a sip of water here. Okay, so that's all we'll say on physical. The other is electronic environment. So my clients tell me that they get about 200 emails a day, and that it dwindles a little bit by Friday. But there's some pretty interesting research about how overwhelming email is and the whole electronic environment. So again, the litmus test is, can you put your hands on what you need? Can you put your mouse on what you need? The research tells us 72% of employees cannot, that in the drives that they have internally in their companies, they're not finding things, and that 85% of the 100 billion emails that are sent each day are not relevant. They're not relevant to what you're doing. So that is an opportunity to make some changes and to kind of shift our thinking. Again, we're not going to really talk about strategies today. If you want strategies on clearing your inbox, you can Google it and you'll have 10 fantastic ideas, maybe even a YouTube video showing you how to do it. But the key thing there is the commitment to making a shift. That's really where many of us need to rehab. And it's not unusual that I have clients that have 35 or 40,000 emails in their active inbox. So it's really something that you want to have command over. And if it's something that makes you feel bad, if it's creating frustration for you, then that is not productive. Okay, the third in this foundational is ambient environment. And I just sort of named it that because it's this sort of third element, really an element of distraction. Pardon me. The average person is interrupted every 7 minutes at work, and 40% of those interruptions are caused by ourselves. We interrupt ourselves. And one of the ways that we interrupt ourselves is by having all of these push notifications. So we get a ding, a ring, a bing, a buzz, and it's not a bad thing. Again, it's not a judgment, but it is not ideal for your brain because your brain does switch over. You have that cognitive distraction. So let's say you're working on a spreadsheet or a report or a presentation that you have to give, and you get a bing or a buzz. And obviously, if it's from your children or it's urgent, you can have a special ring or song or something to alert you. But is it really necessary for you to be alerted to every single thing that's happening? it is a cognitive distraction. Your brain does move over to that device or to that interruption. So it's just something to observe. And don't take away the push notifications of the stuff that you love. If you love Pinterest, or you want to know everything that's going on with Facebook, keep your notifications on. I find in the business environments that I'm in that people are really irritated, actually, but they are, I guess, not conscious enough to change their own settings. So anyone who's around me knows I'm a freak about sounds. I have everything turned off. I like to be the boss of my devices. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, they're there for my purpose. They're for my use. And so I really manage what I hear and see when I'm trying to work. Okay, so now we're going to move into the next level of the triangle. I'll show you the triangle again in a moment. But we're going to move into the values portion. And you might ask yourself, well, what do my values really have to do with time? Well, values are a really interesting part of our work, because sometimes our values are on kind of a subconscious level. They're sort of working, in our operating system without our realization. And whenever we have a discord or conflict between our values and our actions, we're unhappy. It creates suffering. And so I thought it would be interesting to, instead of trying to discipline ourselves into being more time efficient and get more done in a day, just sort of look at our values. And sometimes that means we have to forgive ourselves for our behaviors. Okay, so we're just going to look at keeping promises, responsiveness, and engagement. And I have a definition for each of those that we're going to talk about. So let's first talk about keeping promises. So when it comes to keeping promises, think about, what is your value? So what are your beliefs and how you like to manage your life when it comes to keeping your promises? So I find that people fall into one of two extremes. On the left-hand side of the horizontal line is that I'm a limited commodity. Stuff happens, things fall through the cracks. Maybe you're the only person who knows the special skill at your work, or you have a huge event coming up. But essentially, one extreme is, look, I'm a hot commodity. Not everyone can have access to me, and I can't keep all my promises right now. Deal with it. There's nothing wrong with that value. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. You just kind of have to know where you are. The far right of that horizontal line is, my word is my oath. I do what I say what I'm going to do. I keep my promises. My word is my promise, and canceling or letting things fall through the cracks causes me tremendous stress. So you kind of have to figure out which one you are right now. So if you are the person that you're just a limited commodity right now, maybe you're on a book tour, or you just have something huge and epic going on, or that's just that, your work is your center of your life, and it's okay to be unapologetic about that. There's nothing wrong with being on that extreme. The other extreme is that if your word is your oath, the problem that I find is that lots of us have this value of, I need to keep my promises, and my word is my oath, and I do what I'm going to say. I do what I say I'm going to do. If that is true, then you have to be someone who says no. You have to say no before the commitment, because it's not mathematically possible for you to say yes to everything and keep with your value of keeping your promises. People who keep their promises set boundaries, say no. They have a ton of discernment around what they say yes to. So that is usually a hot spot for a lot of my clients, that it's very hard to say no, but yet they have the value of wanting to be somebody who keeps their promises. So that's something to ponder for you. Let's look at next, responsiveness. So this is a fascinating one to me, because most people have the value, or most people in today's business culture have the value or the standard of, I'm 100% responsive. And an email comes in, I need to respond to it. A call comes in, I need to respond to it. And this is with, this is with all things. This is not with a ton of discernment about who's calling and who's writing. So the problem with this is, like I said, it's not physically, emotionally, or mentally possible to be 100% responsive. And so if your value is a high level of responsiveness, or your company culture is a high level of responsiveness, then the question is, how do I support my environment for being responsive? And it's not possible to be 100% responsive to everyone and be excellent. It's either sort of quality or quantity there. And so that is really something to look at. Yeah, I will just leave it at that. I can tell you that in my workshops, when I ask audiences to raise their hand if they feel that they should be 100% responsive at all times, 100% of them raise their hands. So don't feel bad if you're kind of stuck in this responsiveness value and it's not working for you. So again, it's something to just ponder and think about your own discernment in that realm. Okay, the last that we'll look at in the values is engagement. So engagement, I look at it from two perspectives: your values around engaging with your device and your values around engaging with humans. So first, let's talk about engagement with our devices. I do not like all of the media and all of the cultural habit right now of making people feel bad about their devices. It's so incongruent, because obviously we value it. I mean, we spend, $1,000 nearly on a phone. We love smartphones. We invest in technology. We are going to use them and use them and use them. And so setting up a structure where we have these devices and then we feel bad about it, to me, is not very productive. And so instead of that, what if we sort of reflected on what is my value around my device? So, and that's true with, computers, laptops, smart TVs, the whole thing. I really value technology. I'm incredibly grateful for technology. And so, but I also have my own values about when I engage with my technology and when I don't. But that's really a personal thing. And I think we get very busy about how other people are engaged with their technology. But really, unless it's like actually invading your space, let people do what they want, and be much more concerned about your own habits and your own values as it relates to your engagement with your devices. The second level on engagement is how you engage with humans. What are your values around that? I know that any of us with children, there's a ton of guilt around using our device around our children. And there's a lot of media criticism. Everyone read the big article about the woman who was on her iPhone with her children at the park, and some observer wrote an article that just made me want to set my hair on fire. I was so mad about that. I mean, how do you know what that woman was doing? She could have been talking to her husband in Iraq, or whatever. So, but what is our engagement as it relates to humans? How do you want to be? And this is not to make you feel bad or to make you put your device in a drawer for 30 minutes at a time, which is a great idea, but to just think about how you want to be. Reflect on how you want to be as it relates to humans. My competition with humans is not really devices, it's my own mind. And I work really hard to focus and listen to people and to become a better and better listener. I'm in my early 50s now, and when I turned 40, that was one of my goals, is to be a good listener. And it has taken all this time, and I plan to improve on that. So how do you want to be when you're having lunch with a friend, or you're in a meeting, or you are with your children or loved ones? What do you want your engagement level to be? What is your value around that? Okay, so you're doing great. We're almost done. And we will have a few minutes for questions at the end. So the last two are about white space and focus. And the concept of white space, I talk to my clients about it a lot, and audiences, I always get the question of, what is white space? And white space is simply unscheduled time when you're not on vacation. So we tend to think in realms of extremes. You know, I have to work 24/7. My brain is on 24/7. I don't get quality sleep, or I go on vacation. I want to take a month off and just go off the grid, right? Off radar, I call it. So white space is where you, as a productivity tool and a sanity tool, you schedule some white space in your day, in your week, in your month, so that you can think. The more unscheduled it is, the better. But even if you are, let's say that you have a big presentation coming up and you have no idea, or you have a big article that you write, or your company has tapped you to be a thought leader in some way and you have no idea. This, your subconscious, your brain wants to give you ideas. But this kind of thinking does not come when your day is all squished back to back to back to back, and that you are running from one thing to another. The white space is so worthwhile because it will produce for you answers to some of your biggest problems, answers to concerns. It will help you brainstorm. That is what your subconscious mind is designed for. It is a problem-solving, creative machine. And sometimes it sounds kind of woo-woo, but it's not when I say we are creative beings. Our brains, I mean, look at what the human brain has been able to create. And you have one of those right between your ears. And that's really what white space is about. It's about giving your brain some time to think. Now, you can block out a little white space for working on a particular project. And actually, the creation of this model was, it came to me literally like a download in my brain when I was supposed to be working on a talk that I was giving on confidence. And I had that time scheduled out. I sat at my desk, and then whew, this thing came to me. And it's been very useful, but I also got the confidence workshop written as well. So give yourself some white space. Don't go too extreme on this if it's something you haven't had before. How about just schedule 15 minutes between meetings for the next week and just give yourself some time to breathe, and then see how that goes, and then consider some big blocks of unscheduled time. Okay, focus. So focus, we've talked a lot about the brain today, and focus is ultimately what your brain wants. It wants to be cognitively focused in one particular area. We've seen all the research about how multitasking doesn't work, and the primary reason that it doesn't work is because it does not allow your brain to focus. So ask yourself, I just did an article about a power day, and you can find that on my blog. But ask yourself, when was the last time you got a chance to focus? So much of our work is project driven, and so much depends on the work that we do these days. That when was the last time you got to really focus without a meeting, without having to start and stop and start and stop and start and stop, let alone the interruptions that come from your device? So if the answer is, I can't remember when was the last time I had that kind of focus time, then start with 30-minute increments. Turn everything off except the one thing that you're doing for 30 minutes and just see how it goes. It will also, your level of difficulty with this strategy will kind of give you an idea of kind of where you're at and how bad it is. If you find it pretty easy, then go for an hour. If you find it really difficult, then you might need some more rehab than you think. So ultimately, we want to get to that place of the life of our choosing, where we feel that, yes, we're working very hard. Yes, there's a lot going on. Yes, we have these big lives that we've created, but that there is some joy in that doing. That there is some joy in that being, that we can be a little more present with our kids, a little more present with our work, more productive. And of course, when we are more productive and focused, it takes less time, there are less errors, so many good outcomes from that. So think about for yourself, I'll just show you the model here. So first of all, give yourself credit for where you are in a good place. Like maybe your physical environment is great, or your ambient environment, like you know, turned off all your settings, or whatever it is, it kind of works for you. Maybe your level of engagement is something that you've already worked on. And so make sure you give yourself credit for that, because your brain loves to reflect on things that you've done well rather than what's missing. And then, of course, think about your challenges and maybe pick one area, maybe in the next 90 days that you want to work on. Don't be too aggressive in your goal setting on this. It's really meant to be to kind of reframe your thinking, and thus the term rehab. Okay, so I think if our technology serves us, now is the time that you can ask questions. And while you're typing your questions, because that's how you'll ask questions, I want to let you know that we have a gift for you today, and that is that you get to take the Time IQ test for free. In the future, we'll charge for that, but we're just starting out with these webinars, so we'd love to get your feedback, and as a gift, you get this assessment that I created. It'll take you about 15 minutes, so it's not a 5-second thing that you can do between tasks. But I think you'll find that it will help you sort of figure out the categories where you might need rehab, the more specific drill downs, and it should be a teaching tool. You should learn kind of while you're taking the test, as well as from the results that you get. Okay, well, I want to thank you all so much, and I'm going to look to see if we have any questions.
It doesn't look like we have any questions yet on my end here, Brenda.
Okay, good. Well, that's what happens when you have just food for thought, right?
Right. I will, but I can redirect everybody to the Time IQ test if there aren't any.
Okay, good. Let's do that. So this awesome technology will just redirect you to that.
And that will end the webinar.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.